Joe Biden's already moving forward with transitioning into power, while President Trump still refusing to concede. For more on this, we are joined by Mosheh Oinounou, president at Mo Digital and former executive producer of CBS Evening News. Great to have you on. Mosh, what do you think is going on behind the scenes with Team Trump right now? What are his closest advisors, do you think, telling him right now?
Well, what we do know, based on what we're hearing from his closest advisors, is for the most part, they're going along with his goal of exercising all of his legal challenges. There's been wide reporting this weekend that, for the most part, he believes that this election was stolen from him fraudulently, and he's going to pursue this. Incidentally, though, he needs to pursue this in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Arizona, and in Nevada. And I guess he also has a legal team in Michigan as well. So for the most part, the Electoral College doesn't meet till December 14th. So he effectively has about 30 days here to exercise all of his potential legal avenues.
Do you expect that he'll concede? And what would it mean if he didn't actually concede the presidency here?
I think that, we've become accustomed in America to a formal concession from a president. In fact, I looked this up this morning. It started in about 1896. So we're going at like 124 years now of the loser conceding the election. I think ultimately, given where this is going, I don't see the realistic scenario of a formal concession speech by the president. Ultimately, he is a master marketer. He's a winner. He is going to spin this as this election was stolen from him. But the bottom line is this: President-elect Biden doesn't need a concession from President Trump, though it would go great lengths to help President Biden reach out to the 70 million plus voters who did vote for Trump.
It also makes it harder in a practical sense, right? Because isn't there actually a transition committee with taxpayer money behind it that helps the next president get ready for Inauguration Day?
Right. There's a whole bunch of mechanisms in place for a transition. In fact, on tomorrow, 4 years ago, November 10th, 2016, was the day Biden interacted with Pence and Trump interacted with Obama to begin that transition process. This has the prospect of delaying it by several weeks. There's the General Services Administration, a otherwise very boring government agency that we don't typically talk about, but they ultimately hold millions of dollars and the keys, the passwords, the salaries for all civil servants. Remember, the federal government is a $4 trillion entity. So Biden having to plug in there, even with experience, is going to take a lot of time. One thing to keep note of, though, is that in 2000, given Bush v. Gore took until December 13th, Bush Cheney didn't get the keys from Bill Clinton at that point till that time. So this wouldn't be unprecedented.
Okay, let's talk a bit about life post-presidency for Donald Trump. There's some speculation that he could start Trump TV, something that would almost rival Fox News. Fox News saying they would welcome the competition. Do you see this as realistic?
So we should go back 4 years, right? When Trump was dealing with the reality of potentially not beating Hillary Clinton, they began the conversations, the people around him began talking about what sort of media network do you want? I mean, one thing we do know about the president is he watches hours and hours a day of cable news and loves having that television platform going back to The Apprentice and even before. So one thing we do know is there are two conservative competitors to Fox News who have not called the election for Joe Biden. Incidentally, Fox did about 10 minutes after everybody else on Saturday. There's Newsmax and there's One American News Network. The head of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy, is a close friend of Donald Trump, and over the weekend said he would welcome Trump. So there's two scenarios here. One, Trump starts an all-new network, or two, probably a little easier, is Trump becomes an investor or an anchor of sorts on one of these two competing conservative networks.
And I can't believe I'm going to even ask you this question about 2024, because I don't know. I'm not really ready for it, but why not? So Donald
There's
Trump,
only 1,200 days or so until that election.
Donald Trump Jr. Already kind of being talked about as a potential candidate in 2024. Do you think that the Trump family is going to stay in politics? And do you think we might see either President Trump himself on the ballot in 24 or maybe his daughter or his son?
So, well, first of all, Don Jr. has to wait until Dad gets out of the way. And I'm not sure that President Trump will be very quick to say he's not running in 24. He'll like the idea of staying relevant. I mean, at the least, he's the kingmaker, right? There's a whole bunch of Republican potential candidates, Kristi Noem, Nikki Haley, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, who are all in the Trump orbit and will want the blessing of Donald Trump, which is one of the reasons why there's only one Republican senator who has congratulated Joe Biden, Mitt Romney, who has no ambitions beyond this. The other 49 haven't said anything to Joe Biden at this point because they're waiting on the president. So one other thing that we know is Mick Mulvaney, who was White House Chief of Staff, did tell media over the weekend that he thinks it's totally realistic that Trump could run in 24. I think what you're looking at is Trump holds it out for a couple of years, decides not to do it. Maybe Don Jr. runs. By the way, Don Jr. has tweeted 22,000 times in the past 4 years, so he's got a long record to run on.
And really quickly, because we're almost out of time, you have thousands of followers on Instagram. I'm curious their response to Biden's speech and Kamala Harris's speech Saturday night.
One thing I was particularly interested in was reaching out to Trump voters and asking them, how did you feel about what Biden had to say? Now, a couple of them were positive. You know, that if Biden follows through on this message, I'm willing to give him a shot. Though, as of this weekend, especially given the president's rhetoric about a fraudulent election, a lot of them are telling me, they still hold out hope for President Trump. They are, grasping at these potential legal challenges. And frankly, it's still a little raw. The election's still a little raw. So I think that if Biden is serious about reaching out to the 70 million or so Trump voters, that has to be a serious and concerted effort over the course of the next couple of years.
All right, Mosheh Oinounou, president at Mo Digital and former executive producer of CBS Evening News. Great to have you on.